Well, students, we have finished one part of the numerical linear algebra chapter, that is on the direct methods for solving linear systems. As the next part, we are supposed to go to study the iterative methods for linear systems. While doing error analysis for the approximate solution of a linear system using iterative methods, we have to use an important tool called the matrix norms. So we will take a slight deviation from our mainstream of developing methods for solving linear systems and spend some time on understanding what is meant by matrix norms. We can say that the notion of norms is an abstract form of the distance concept. Let us take 2 points in R, say x1 and x2, and ask the question, what is the distance between these 2 points? Well, you will draw the line between these 2 points and find the length of the line, and that will be given by x1 minus x2, right? The same, if you come to R2 and take 2 points, say x1, which is equal to coordinates x1 and y1, and have another point, say x2, its coordinates are x2 comma y2, and ask what is the distance between these 2 points. Again, what you will do is you will draw the line between these 2 points and measure the length of that line, right? And that will be given by the Euclidean formula root x1 minus x2 whole square plus y1 minus y2 whole square. And generally, we use the notation like this, 2 lines, then x1 minus x2, 2, right? And generally, it is called the Euclidean norm. Of course, this formula can be extended to Rn. In fact, this formula gives the physical distance between 2 points in Rn. Now, we would like to generalize this notion of distance. The question is, why do we need to generalize this notion when we have this simple formula, which is also physically realistic? The reason is, well, if we need to work with only objects in Rn, then Euclidean norm is suitable and also enough. But often we need to find distance between 2 objects which are not in Rn. For instance, I want to find the distance between 2 functions, say f and g, or the distance between 2 matrices, say A and B. Now, how will we do that? Of course, it is not clear what we meant by distance between 2 functions. Is it that you give me a x and then I will find f of x minus g of x and then take the modulus of that? If that is so, then you may also give me another point, say y, and with that I will generate the entirely different number f of y minus g of y and its modulus, right? Now, which one should I take? Whether I should take this as the definition of the distance between these 2 functions, or should I take this number as the distance? Okay, so there is an ambiguity, but intuitively, once you fix the objects, the distance between these 2 objects should be a fixed number, right? You cannot say that the distance between 2 objects is given by 2 different numbers. Therefore, this idea will not work, and we need to look for a meaningful tool to measure distance between 2 objects which are not necessarily in Rn. In fact, a tool to find distance between 2 matrices is really required in our case. For instance, when you claim that you have a method to find approximate solution of the system, say Ax equal to B, for a given matrix A and the right hand side B, what that method does is it gives an approximate solution to your system, say denoted by XA. Now, if I ask you the question, how good is your method in approximating the solution of this system? What you naturally have to do is to find the distance between the true solution and the approximate solution, right? That is to find the distance between the true solution, let us denote it by xt, and the approximate solution xa. The distance means, of course, we know as long as they are in Rn, we can use our tool Euclidean formula to find this distance. Up to here, everything is fine. Well, you can find this number only when these two vectors are given to us. This is, of course, is a known quantity because your method will give you this. But unfortunately, this is not known, right? If we know this, then we don't need to go for an approximate method, right? Since we don't know the true solution of your system, you chose to go for an approximation procedure, right? Therefore, you want to get an idea of this number without knowing this quantity. So that is the interest for us. If not the exact number, at least can we find an estimate of this error is the question. The answer for this question will naturally bring in the situation of measuring how good or bad the coefficient matrix A is. Well, that needs the notion of condition number for the matrix A. We already introduced the condition number of a function. From there, we can intuitively see that if the condition number is very big, then we expect our method not to work well with that system. Whereas the condition number is very small, our method may work well with the system. Now, going to define this condition number, we will have to find the distance between A and the zero matrix. In other words, we will have to work with a number which looks like this. Something like in the Euclidean space, you can ask this question, what is the distance between the vector x and the origin 0? Then you have to compute this number, which of course we know a very nice formula that it is nothing but x1 square plus y1 square if it is in 2 dimension, and similarly in n dimension we can find the distance between this vector x and the origin using this formula, right? Similarly, we need a formula to also find this quantity. But it is not clear or intuitive how to define this number, which in a sense resembles the distance between the matrix A and the zero matrix. In fact, we have to adopt this definition in a rather meaningful way, that when you restrict A to a vector, it should naturally go back and resemble your definition of the distance. So how to bring out this definition is the question. This actually puts us in a situation where we have to think the distance concept in a rather abstract framework. So what we will do is, we will first obtain this abstract framework of distance in the case of vectors, because we know very clearly how this distance looks like in the case of vectors. Once we have that abstract framework in the vector case, then we will try to generalize it to any object that is not necessarily a vector in Rn. We call the generalized notion of distance as norms, and let us first define the notion of norms in the context of vectors. A vector norm on Rn is a function denoted by this symbol, which is from Rn to the interval 0 to infinity, having the following properties. Before listing the property, let me just tell you something about this notation. Often students get frightened about this notation. You need not worry about that because it's just a notation. Generally, we write f from Rn to some set, say, let's take 0 to infinity itself. It means what? You take any vector from Rn and apply f on that, that will give you some number alpha which belongs to this interval, right? The same idea here, it's just a notation where you take any vector x and put it like this, and that gives you a number alpha. So you will adopt some formula to this notation depending on the coordinates of the vector x, such that the value of that formula is some number alpha, and that belongs to this interval 0 to infinity, right? So this is just a notation, just like this is a notation, this is also a notation. You should not get frightened with this. Of course, if you have done real analysis course, you would have done it in the context of multivariable analysis. Now coming to the properties, this function satisfies the following properties. The first property is, when you apply this function on any vector x in Rn, the number that it returns will be greater than or equal to 0. Of course, this information is already packed in this notation because its range is the interval 0 to infinity. The second property is that if you find that your function returns value 0 to a vector x, it means the vector itself is a 0 vector. Okay. No non-zero vector can lead to the value 0 when applied to this function. Third is scalar multiplication. If you take a vector x and multiply it with some scalar alpha and give that to your function, then your function will return the value which is equal to this number. That is mod alpha into the number that your function returns when applied on the vector x. Okay, this happens for all vectors in Rn and any scalar that you choose from R. Finally, the important property called the triangle inequality. You take two vectors x and y, add them up, and then apply the function on it. That will be less than or equal to individually applying the function on these vectors. Okay, such a function is called the norm. So this function is called norm, and we say this notation, that is this notation, as norm x. That is how we pronounce. Let's see some examples. As usual, we will always denote the vector x in Rn with the components like this, x1, x2 up to xn, and generally it is a column vector. But in the vector norm context, it is not important. When we go further into the matrix calculations, there it matters. Here it doesn't matter. The first example is our familiar one, that is the Euclidean norm. This is the physically realistic one because it gives the actual distance between 2 points. And we are familiar with this formula, right? So you take any vector x and apply the norm to it, and that returns the number which is calculated using this formula. And that is precisely the distance between the vector x and the origin 0, right? You can go back and check all the conditions and see that the Euclidean norm formula satisfies all these conditions. Of course, we listed all these properties as the definition of norm by keeping the distance concept in mind. You can see that distance between any 2 points is always a positive number, right? In general, we call it as sign distance. And if you say that the distance between the point x and 0 is 0, it means it's a 0 vector. That is also true. And the other two properties also one can see very clearly that they hold when you keep distance concept in mind, right? Since we kept the distance concept in mind and listed all these properties, naturally your Euclidean norm will satisfy all these properties. Once we have generalized the distance concept, now we can go beyond the physically realistic distance formula and think our own formula for the norm. It may not be physically realistic in the sense that it may not exactly give you the distance, but still it satisfies the conditions that the distance formula will satisfy, right? So in that way, we will list a few other examples. Next one is called the L infinity norm, and it is denoted by this notation, and its formula is given by this. That is, you take each component of your vector, take the modulus of them, and take the maximum of that. You can go back and check that all the properties of norm are satisfied by this formula. Thereby, it is not going to give you physically the same value that this formula gives, and therefore it's not going to exactly define the distance between x and 0, but it also satisfies all the key properties that the distance function satisfies. In that way, we will not call it as distance, but we will call it as norm. Okay, so this is also a vector norm. That's all we will say. And it is called L infinity norm. The next example is called the L1 norm, and its formula is given by this. Its notation is norm suffix 1. Okay, so when you give any vector x to that norm, what that norm will do is take each component, take the modulus. Now it will add all the numbers, and that gives you the L1 norm. Again, you can go back and check that all the properties of the norm are also satisfied by this formula. Therefore, this is also a norm defined on Rn. Well, we have defined the vector norm on Rn, and we have seen these three examples. In our course, we mainly fix these three examples and work in any problem that we are interested in. But in reality, you can define many more norms, but we are interested in only these three now. You may be wondering, well, there may be a purpose to think an abstract concept for distance, but why should we think something which is not realistic as distance when we have a nice physically realistic formula for distance? There is also a purpose for why we are extending our distance concept to some other formulas which are not physically realistic. That point I will explain little later when I come to matrix norm. But for time being, you can clearly see whether they are physically realistic or not. These two also satisfies mathematically all the properties that the physically realistic distance formula satisfies. With this idea, let us go to define matrix norm. The idea behind matrix norm is exactly the same as what we did in the vector norm. We have a function denoted by this symbol, the same as the symbol used in the vector norm. Now it is defined on the set of all n cross n matrices with elements as real numbers. So you give any matrix A to this norm function. It has some formula, and that formula returns you some real number, say alpha, and that alpha is a non-negative real number, right? So that is what this notation means. And now this function, which we call as matrix norm, will satisfy some set of properties. Again, these properties are exactly the same as what we defined in the context of vector norms, by keeping the distance concept in Rn in mind. Therefore, you can see that the norm function, when applied on any matrix A, will return you a non-negative number. The second property is, if your norm function returns 0, it means the matrix that you gave is the 0 matrix. And at the same time, if you give a 0 matrix to your norm function, it will surely give you the number 0, right? And then comes this scalar multiplication property. You give alpha into the matrix A to your norm function, it returns you the value which will be equal to mod alpha into norm A. And this will hold for any n cross n matrix with real entries and any real number alpha that you give. And finally, the triangle inequality. You take two matrices, A and B, give the sum of these matrices to your norm function. It gives you a value which is less than or equal to norm A plus norm B. You can see that these properties are exactly the same as what we listed in the vector norms. We are just taking the idea of distance in Rn, generalized it first to vectors, and just adopted the same idea to these general objects A, which are in our context matrices. As usual, we will use this notation for a n cross n matrix where Aij's are real and Aij represents the element at the ith row and jth column. Again, like in vector norm case, once you generalize the distance concept, you can think of many examples as norms. Similarly, in matrices also, we can define many matrix norms, but we will be interested in the following three matrix norms. The first one is defined like this. Norm A is equal to this. It means you take each row, take the square of the each column in the row, sum them up, and then sum all the rows. You can check that this formula satisfies all the properties listed as matrix norms. Therefore, this function defines a matrix norm. Similarly, you take all the elements of the matrix A, take their modulus, and take the maximum of all that. That you define as this function, and you can verify again that it defines a matrix norm. This also defines a matrix norm. You can verify it. As I told, there can be many more examples. Another interesting and important example of matrix norms is the following. You are given an n cross n matrix A with real entries. Consider the matrix A transpose A and find all its eigenvalues. Now define the function like this: square root of maximum over I varying from 1 to n modulus of lambda i's. You can clearly see that this function defines a matrix norm. Why I say that it is important will be evident when we go into the next section on subordinate norms. In fact, we can see that this is one of the examples of subordinate norms. Subordinate norms are useful in our analysis because it has one important property, that when you take the matrix A and multiply it with the vector x, then of course this is a vector now. You take a vector norm on this, any vector norm that we stick with, then we would like to work with a matrix norm in such a way that this is less than or equal to the matrix norm of A into the same vector norm applied on X. So here you should be able to distinguish between a vector norm and a matrix norm in the way they are used. For instance, here you can see that this is the vector norm. For the clarity, let us denote it by V here. And you should have the same vector norm applied on X also. And for clarity, let us denote the matrix norm by M. Then you have M here. In all our analysis on methods for solving linear systems, we will be using an inequality like this, provided this matrix norm is somehow generated from this vector norm. It means you give me a vector norm. From there, I will generate a matrix norm and then fix these two norms and work in all my error analysis of my method. And what is the advantage of working with them is that such norms will satisfy this inequality. And this inequality is crucially used in all our results. Such a matrix norm is called the subordinate matrix norm with respect to the vector norm given by this symbol. And this matrix norm is the subordinate matrix norm to our Euclidean norm, which we know that it defines the physical distance concept in the Rn. Therefore, it is more natural to use this particular norm in all our examples. But as you can see, it involves eigenvalues of the matrix A, which is generally not so easy to compute if the matrix A is very large. And especially when you go to compute it on a computer, it becomes very difficult. In fact, we will be introducing a method called power method to find the dominant eigenvalue of a given matrix A. But in general, it is not very easy or straightforward to obtain eigenvalues of a matrix A. That is why it is often difficult to work with the Euclidean norm. Although it is physically realistic, we look for some alternate vector norm and its corresponding subordinate norm, which can be computed more easily than this one. This is also one reason why we have introduced many other norms for vector other than the Euclidean norm. We will precisely define what is meant by subordinate norms and discuss its properties in the next class.